Razor had become a legend in the small mountain town long before anyone dared to get close enough to see if the rumors were true. Some said he was born in a military kennel but escaped after a traumatic explosion that killed his handler. Others claimed he was the abandoned, attack dog of a cartel crew passing through the valley. Many believed he was simply cursed because no normal German shepherd moved with the silent cold, calculating intelligence Razor did. He lurked in the forest shadows like a ghost, stealing food from farms, ripping through fences, and leaving claw marks on barn doors as warnings. Animal control officers tried everything: bait traps, tranquilizer darts, even sound cannons, yet Razor dismantled every attempt with terrifying precision, as if he understood strategies meant for humans. By the time winter rolled in, children were forbidden to walk alone at dusk, and ranchers kept guns loaded by their doors. That was when the town council made a desperate call to the only man they thought might stand a chance, a quiet, stone-faced veteran named Ethan Ward, who had recently returned after serving 20 years in combat. Canine units around the world, Ethan lived alone in a cabin by the ridge, haunted by memories of war and the loss of his partner, another German shepherd named Ghost, who had died saving his life overseas. He didn't want to help. He didn't want to bond with another dog. He didn't want to reopen the wound he had tried so hard to bury. But when the sheriff arrived at his door holding a photograph of Razor, eyes wild, fur matted, teeth bared exactly like Ghost had in the final seconds before the blast, Ethan felt something crack inside him. He agreed to try, not because he believed he could tame Razor, but because something about the dog's rage looked too familiar. That night, he tracked Razor into the forest using nothing but moonlight and instinct, moving quietly, breathing slowly, letting the wilderness speak. He found the dog standing on a cliff's edge, silhouetted like a spirit carved from darkness. Razor didn't growl. He didn't bark. He simply stared at Ethan with a look that said, "Step closer and I'll end this for both of us." But Ethan didn't raise a weapon. He didn't reach for a leash. Instead, he sat down on the cold dirt, turned his back slightly, and allowed his heartbeat to slow into the calm rhythm of trust, a gesture so shocking, so unnatural in the face of a feral predator, that Razor's ears twitched in confusion. For 30 minutes, man and dog existed in absolute silence, two damaged souls studying each other across a lifetime of pain. And then, when a gust of wind rattled the branches above, Razor lunged not to attack, but to stand between Ethan and the falling debris, reacting with trained instinct he shouldn't logically have had. Ethan froze. That protective move. Ghost used to do it. Something wasn't right. Something deeper was inside this creature. Over the next days, Ethan returned to the forest again. And again, each time sitting a little closer, speaking softly about the ghosts of his past, telling Razor stories no human had ever heard. The dog listened. Razor didn't trust him, but he didn't try to kill him either, which was progress in itself. Then came the night of the blizzard, when the winds howled like banshees and snow swallowed the sky. Razor found Ethan first, collapsed near a frozen creek, wounded after slipping on a ridge. Instead of leaving him to die, the wild German shepherd dragged the unconscious veteran to the shelter of a hollow tree, curled his body around Ethan to keep him warm, and stayed awake all night as wolves circled them in the darkness. When Ethan opened his eyes at sunrise, weak and bleeding, Razor was still there, staring at him with the unmistakable loyalty of a soldier who had chosen a new mission. Ethan felt tears burn his eyes for the first time in years. The town didn't believe it when they saw Ethan walking down Main Street days later with Razor at his side, calm, steady, obedient, as if he had never been wild at all. Some called it magic. Some called it luck. But Ethan knew the truth. Razor wasn't a monster. He was a warrior who had lost his handler, just like Ethan had lost Ghost. They understood each other in a way no one else ever could, and the world would soon learn that taming Razor wasn't the shocking part. What Ethan discovered next would change everything. If you want to hear the rest, Ethan murmured to the camera during his first recording about their journey, "Subscribe, because this story is only beginning." Ethan soon discovered that Razor's past was even darker than the rumors suggested, beginning the moment he noticed the faded tattoo burned into the dog's inner ear, a code used only in classified military breeding programs, the kind reserved for canines trained in detection, tracking, and advanced combat operations. Razor hadn't simply escaped a tragedy. He had survived something catastrophic, something the government had quietly buried. Determined to uncover the truth, Ethan drove Razor across the state to meet an old commander who owed him a favor. A man who paled the moment he saw the shepherd. Razor wasn't a normal K9. He was part of Project Sentinel, an elite unit of hyper-intelligent dogs designed for missions, too dangerous for human soldiers. But there had been an attack during a covert operation abroad, an explosion, a betrayal and a failed extraction. Razor had lost his handler, Captain Elias Stone, and after watching the man he loved die in the dirt, something inside Razor shattered. He escaped, broke through a transport cage, and vanished into the wilderness. No one could approach him since. He trusted no one, feared nothing, and fought everything. Ethan realized the dog's savagery wasn't madness, it was grief. Raw and unfiltered teen survivor's grief. The same kind Ethan had carried since Ghost died. So he made a decision that shocked even his closest friends. He wouldn't turn. Razor Inn wouldn't surrender him to authorities. Wouldn't allow him to be evaluated or put down as some officers whispered. Instead, Ethan took Razor deeper into the mountains, far from curious eyes, and began retraining him. Slowly, patiently, rebuilding a bond the dog had believed he would never feel again. And as Razor began to trust, small miracles followed. The dog who once attacked fences now protected children walking home from school. The beast who terrified ranchers now guarded their livestock from coyotes. Families started leaving food at Ethan's porch to thank Razor. Children left drawings. Strangers mailed letters calling him the mountain guardian. But danger returned. The moment Razor's existence reached the wrong people, the same shadow unit responsible for Project Sentinel. They arrived quietly, armed, determined to retrieve what they believed was government property. Ethan stood in front of Razor, refusing to step aside even when ordered at gunpoint. Razor growled low, ears back, tail stiff, ready to fight to the death at Ethan's command. And then Ethan did something unbelievably shocking, something Razor's handlers had once said was impossible. He turned his back to Razor, raised his hands, and whispered only one word: stay. For the first time since losing Captain Elias Stone, Razor obeyed absolute trust. The agents froze. A dog that unpredictable, that traumatized, that dangerous obeyed a stay command with perfect discipline? That wasn't property. That was loyalty. That was a chosen bond, something no government program could manufacture. After hours of negotiation, Ethan won the battle, not with threats, but with proof. Razor wasn't an asset anymore. He was a partner, a hero, a survivor, and his home was with Ethan now. Months passed. Razor became famous nationwide. Journalists drove hours to interview the veteran who tamed the impossible dog, but Ethan always corrected them. I didn't tame him. He healed me. We healed each other. The final scene of their documentary showed Ethan sitting on the cliff where they first met, snow drifting softly around him, Razor resting proudly at his side as he looked into the camera and said, "If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button, not for me but for him, because this world needs to hear stories about second chances, and Razor is living proof that no soul is too broken to be saved." After Razor became the town's miracle, Ethan finally felt life slowing down, but Razor's eyes still carried storms. Every night he stared at the dark mountains as if something inside them whispered his name. Ethan didn't understand why a healed dog would still tremble in his sleep, pacing the cabin restlessly, until the morning Razor dropped a metal canister at his feet, dented, scorched, marked with the same classified tattoo code Ethan had seen inside Razor's ear. When Ethan cracked it open and decrypted the files, his blood ran cold. Razor had not been the only survivor of the blast that destroyed his unit. Another German shepherd, Razor's brother from the same Project Sentinel program, had lived. His name was Onyx, and the file described him as missing, presumed hostile, captured by a rogue paramilitary group and trained into something brutal. Razor hadn't been wandering the forest out of habit. He had been searching for him. That night, Razor whined at the cabin door, refusing to sleep, pressing his nose toward the mountains. Ethan understood that pain. He had lost Ghost and spent years trying to fill the empty space. So he made the decision Razor silently begged for. They would search for Onyx. Razor leaped into the truck before Ethan even loaded his gear. Their journey led them through abandoned mine roads, frozen creeks and forests so silent they felt like holding breath. Razor moved with precision, focused, tracking, following scents only a soldier dog could recognize. They found claw marks on trees, shredded animals not eaten but destroyed in rage. Onyx wasn't hunting. He was suffering. Ethan built camp near a clearing, the air freezing, fire crackling, Razor alert. At midnight, Razor growled, a deep shaking growl that meant danger. Ethan turned and saw Onyx at the edge of the firelight, massive, scarred, eyes wild. A dog broken by war and remolded by violence. Onyx bared his teeth, ready to attack. Ethan froze, but Razor stepped forward, not in aggression, but with his head low, tail down, letting out soft, pleading whimpers, the sound of a soldier recognizing family. Onyx hesitated, trembling, torn between instinct and memory. Ethan knew this moment could end in death. So he did something, as shocking as when he first tamed Razor. He put his weapon on the ground, raised his hands and whispered, "You're safe here," Onyx growled. Confused by gentleness he hadn't seen in years, Razor leaned in, touching his forehead to Onyx's, an unspoken language only warrior dogs understood. The forest fell silent. The wind stopped. Onyx's body shook as memories pushed through his trauma. Then he released a long, heartbreaking whine, the kind only a dog in deep grief could make. He collapsed into Razor, their heads pressed together. Two survivors finally reunited. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He wasn't just saving Razor, he was saving the last living piece of Razor's lost life. Slowly, Onyx stepped toward Ethan, shaking with fear. Ethan knelt, palm open. Onyx sniffed his hand, then pressed his head into Ethan's chest. A surrender. A plea for safety. Razor wagged his tail weakly, exhausted but relieved. Ethan wrapped an arm around each of them, whispering, "You're safe now. Both of you." But he knew this peace wouldn't last. The men who once controlled Onyx would never stop hunting him. Project Sentinel's secrets wouldn't stay buried forever. Tomorrow danger would come. But tonight, under the quiet mountain sky, Ethan had given two broken soldiers the one thing war had stolen from them: family. As the firelight flickered, Ethan looked into his camera and whispered, "If you're watching, hit subscribe, because this story isn't over. Razor has his brother back, but now the real fight begins."